Much. We're now going to move over to the Conservatives. Mr. Bezan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to ask some follow-up questions. I know we've been talking and concentrating a lot on the upcoming elections, but one of the things that the committee is also seized with here is the concerns surrounding current situations of human rights, whether or not there is actual independent court processes, and the oppression of the political opposition, of the media, and there was some earlier comments about making sure that we take sanctions against those that are wrongfully influencing Ukraine, whether it's individual sanctions against those in Russia, as we've said, the puppets of Putin, or whether or not we're talking about the main players within the Yanukovych regime and those that are bending the rules to suit their own political and personal needs. So should we, as Canada, be taking stronger action on individuals and also sending strong messages as to the overall agreements that we have in place with Ukraine and those that we're negotiating, such as the Canada Free Trade Agreement with Ukraine?
If I may, sir, both way, of course, on my opinion, should be used. The most effective, the strongest message from Canada, the United States, towards our officials, especially those in the government, is that they are under the close monitor of international society, of law enforcement. The most effective mechanism, I believe, is fighting money laundering internationally. And the crucial might be contribution from the Canadian law enforcement and Canadian government. And same time, of course, internationally, from G7, from Canadian perspective, to demand to actually ask Ukrainian government follow their international obligations on all international agreements.
Anybody else want to comment on that? Nope. Okay. The one thing that when I was doing election observation as part of the Canada-Ukraine Foundation observation mission, and we actually, Bob Onishchuk is here, and we actually did a report that we presented in Kiev, was the amount of money that's used to influence Ukrainian politics. Not just in, advertising and promoting the political leadership, but the amount of money that's used in buying your way onto the lists, to be part of the partisan lists. Only the first 5 or 6 names are ever published. You never know who's actually purchased their way to be. Essentially they are. They're buying their way to be a deputy. And they're buying their way in to be the candidate. And I was hoping that by going to direct representation, by having each oblast with a chance to directly elect their people, that we'd be able to remove some of that corruption. But you're saying the way the rules are set, and I've read the rules and questioned the constitutionality of how those rules were brought into play. But can we go back in time when the first elections were held, where we had direct electoral systems for Parliament, and possibly have that as a way to bring back, a more Western-styled democratic system? Well, there was at a time in the early part of Ukraine's democratic history after independence where there was direct elections of deputies.
Through our history of 20 years independence, we used all possible systems of elections. Mm-hmm. We used first only majority, purely majority system, which has proven to be spoiled by the so-called administrative resource when the authorities in power, local authorities, were influencing the results of the elections. So that's why this led the Parliament to the decision to create a mixed system first, that is 50% by proportionate and 50% majority. So it happened again to be, a lot of abuse of power in these elections. So then we switched to purely proportional system. And now the current authorities, they decided that for their benefit, it would be better to go back to the mixed system, 50 by 50. I think that in the Ukrainian realities, whatever system you will suggest, it will be discredited, especially because of the low level of political culture. I would like to be objective, but it seemed to me that the representatives of the current authorities, who are in the majority, they are the bearers of this bad political culture and practices. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to let Mr. Lever.